right? When you check in. Insane, okay. Okay, we are on lesson 3. Lesson 3 of choosing God's best. I hope that there's things that are being said to you that's kind of illuminating some areas of your thinking. I'm wanting to stimulate your thinking. Sometimes the only concepts we have of a lot of times then it goes a little further, maybe our society, you know, our teachers, the society shapes it. Very few times, more seldom than often, our values for finding our life partner is actually shaped by our family. Now, why do I say that? I'm just going to give a personal example. I knew a family once that the family didn't talk about things that were very personal. They talk about everything else, but when it gets to a personal issue, we dare not do that. It's like the mother and father telling the son or the daughter who they should or should not consider for a life partner. No, I don't want to get into that avenue. You know, that's kind of like butting into their business. But yet that same family, it can be something so insignificant as the hairstyle someone wears, then everybody discuss it. You come walking out, why you got your hair like that? You look like this, you look like that. I cannot stand it. I push your hair down, I do this to you, I do that. I cannot take it. A very insignificant issue. Really not very life-threatening. If your hairstyle is one way, your hairstyle is another way, right? That doesn't determine your destiny by your hairstyle, right? But your life partner is the most significant choice that you will make in your life. It affects everything. And yet the same family would never go into those issues. To sit down and talk with the son, what kind of wife are you going to choose? You sure that type of person? Or I don't feel comfortable with that person, and this is the reason I don't feel comfortable. No, can't discuss that. That one's taboo. So as a result, we're seeing generations in the past where there was very high guidelines for home life because society had very high guidelines, all right? Because society said the norm is that long time ago, a girl and a guy couldn't even be in the same room together without a chaperone. Society demanded that. Not so, and because society demanded it, then of course it would trickle down to individual homes, and the homes would follow whatever society said etiquette was. You following me? But now, so 2 generations back, maybe my parents' generation, when they were doing us as children, a lot of them still had a more old-fashioned idea because it was still acceptable in society, according to maybe where you lived, a little bit more old-fashioned ideas of trying to find a mate. And so because they had such strict protocols in the family, and they wouldn't allow you to do this and they wouldn't allow you to do that, this particular family wouldn't allow the young people, their children, to go to someplace, to go on a camp, to go to a youth camp maybe, even though it's even a church-related thing, because they were never allowed to do that. They're not going to let the children out of their sight. I am going to control the atmosphere. I'm going to control the perimeter so that I can guarantee nothing funny will happen. Now we go another generation after that. And the parents that were treated this way say, I will not treat my children that way. It's ridiculous to have so many guidelines. It's a church function. Never mind, let them go. And then they start, and so they have broadened their limitations and their confines and the restrictions on the child, which we could view that as okay, that's pretty good. The children should be trusted. It's still taboo. Because they were never discussed with it by their parents, but their parents were very strict, so they still were okay. Their life turned out pretty good. Now, they were strict to their children, never discussed anything, why you have perimeters, nobody setting, and so the perimeters were there, and the children did okay. But now we're to the 3rd generation. Maybe people who have children that are young, your age, my age with your age, okay? Parents, children. And because we've loosened, go ahead. We've loosened our restrictions, so you are free to have many choices, many things to influence you. And because of that, maybe we haven't given you any guidelines or explanations to what we would expect, and we don't discuss it, because how can I invade your privacy? I mean, here you are running around with whoever, question mark, we don't know. And maybe you don't tell us. Maybe you sneak behind our back and we ain't got a clue, and you're very proud of yourself because actually you're doing whatever you're pretty well pleased to do and nobody knows about it. And we've never discussed these issues with you in our homes. And so as a result, you are reaping the consequences. What consequences? You're reaping the effects of promiscuousness. If you are sexually active, you're running a very high danger of AIDS. You're taking a chance, you get involved with somebody innocently, they think, lets the guy record them as they're having sex on their hand phone, and the next thing they know, their reputation is totally destroyed in the school. This happens in Singapore. Totally destroyed. Why? Because the other person who has less morals than even them puts it on the internet for everybody to have a fair look at. This was like quite interesting. Let everybody see it. So then that young person is suffering terribly. Why? I think because we've never ventured into discussing the most important thing that affects your life. One lousy decision can be a rippling effect that can make your life better, or it can destroy your life. Wow, you're saying that so like that? You mean me just dating one person can actually? Yes, it can. One person who, if you are not strong enough and who you don't feel comfortable saying no to, or perhaps it's one person that's not even a nice person and can drug a drink you're having, and the next thing you know, you're someplace and you don't know what's happened to you, but you have a feeling it wasn't right. And then you find out later, wow, everybody's seeing what happened to you, and you're seeing it the first time yourself. This is a sick world we're living in. And to pretend like we're living where everybody lives happily ever after is not realistic. To live happily ever after, you have to have a purposed idea and a plan so that your life ends up the way you hope and you dream for it to end up. The good news is it can go past your dreams. It can get that good that it goes to where you never even imagined. But to do that, you have to build a foundation. You do not leave it to happenstance. You don't just stumble into it. Just because you walk to a mall and you run into your friends and there's this cute guy that you've wanted his attention, and finally he gives you some attention and your world is finally happening. And you just stumble. You may not have experienced all the hard knocks, and hopefully you will never have to experience them. So we're talking to this lesson on getting into courtship and actually the foundations of it. And what do you do, and how do you know you're ready to do this? Say, I know I'm ready to do this because I'm already doing it right now. Well, maybe you are, but you haven't convinced me that you are really ready yet. I'll know maybe once you go through this and you can answer some of the questions that are thrown out to you. If you honestly, seriously, from your heart can say you meet these criteria, then yeah, maybe you are ready to do that. But you don't just pick anybody. You must have a reason for who you choose, for it to be a foundation that will be long-lasting and not just a bad experience that at the end of the day you can't even face each other because the scars and the hurts and the pains were too deep. Why were they too deep? Because you got involved in an area that you really weren't ready to commit yet to. And it's a natural byproduct. So let's open up. First slide. Isaiah 55, 8 and 9. God's word says, they don't like that, God, because you don't think the way they think. You're not living in 2008. And if you really understood, if you came now, you'd change a lot of these things. I don't think so, because God is perfect, and He's just, and He's true, which means He looked ahead to 2008 and saw you in your relationship or in the relationship you're